Hello, Cliff. Do you know who I am?
I recognize your face. I'm sorry I forget your name.
I'm the Antichrist.
You're the Antichrist.
Yeah. I have a lot of issues with the Bible.
Yeah.
I didn't read it because I'm nominally Catholic, but I didn't go to church, thank God, right?
Right.
I went to Sunday school for a summer. I learned how to name all 84 books of the Bible. I got
84?
with Old and New Testament, that's what I remember.
Okay.
Like they had us each week, Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, Deuteronomy, or whatever. And we got candy. If we could do it, and then at the end I could name them all.
Yeah.
So thank you, because I'm learning things or whatever. But I opened up the Bible at one point randomly, and I read some horribly misogynist stuff in it, right?
Yeah.
And so this whole the document, it's sort of it's to protect, it's to enshrine, not finding the right word, the patriarchy, right? And it's very evil to me, right? And what we've done to women for millennia. And here's my question. I want to find a real smart person that's thought about this a lot that can answer for me why it was that since women are, there's some beautiful women around here, you know what I mean?
Yes, there are. We agree on that.
Yeah, women are smarter than men, mostly, right? They're just more beautiful beings. But so some gang of men a long time ago decided to basically suppress them, right?
That's very simple, because men are sinners. And that's why men have had chauvinistic, sexist attitudes, because men are sinners. That's evil. That's wrong. And the Bible clearly states that.
Really?
Yeah, really.
But there's a lot of misogyny in the Bible, I think.
Yeah, and there's a lot of rape and murder and adultery and polygamy. The Bible is an historical record. It includes the account of a lot of evil,
Right.
including sexism, racism, polygamy, murder, rape. It's all in there.
It's horrible. All right, I have another question for you. So, in my honest, humble opinion, if you want to learn about religion and what it is, you should listen to Alan Watts. I think Alan Watts was God. And he died in '73. You know Alan Watts, right?
No, I don't.
He was a British man. He trained to be an Episcopal priest.
Yeah.
But he developed an interest in Buddhism as a young man.
Yeah.
Anyway, so he traveled to the United States, and during the 50s and 60s, he gave many talks on Taoism, Hinduism, Buddhism, et cetera, et cetera.
Yep.
And you can watch these, they're fascinating. There's about 100 talks on YouTube that you can listen to. So if you want to learn about religion, you should check that out.
Good.
But anyway, he makes a point about, in the Greek translation, it says that Jesus says, I am a son of God, right?
Wrong.
Now this is important.
No, he doesn't say that.
That's what the Greek said. See,
No, it's not.
His point was, the Greek says, that Jesus is saying, I am a son of God. But it's mistranslated as, I am the son of God.
Yeah.
Right? Because basically we're all sort of incarnations of God.
No, that's not what Jesus taught.
Well, it's the truth, I'm telling you now.
Okay.
But so, from that confusion, and I guess he also makes the point that they pedestalized Jesus. So basically they took this mystic, there have been mystics also throughout history,
Yes,
right?
sir. Many mystics.
Like the Buddha,
Yep.
that 12th century Sufi poet, the mystic, what's his name?
Well, there are many.
Yeah, there were many, and so it's sort of ridiculous but I think that was their strategy is to say, like, okay, well, Jesus was God and that's it. So no one else can be God, after him. But I understand that religion exists to oppress humanity. It's used by evil institutions, like there's many, like with the Vatican.
Well, sure, it's used by evil institutions.
Et cetera.
But Jesus wasn't oppressive. He came to bring freedom.
No, I know. And actually, the only thing I know about Jesus, I read in the Oscar Wilde essay, The Soul of Man Under Socialism.
Yeah.
But it was interesting because I read what his message was, and I agree with it completely.
Yeah.
But I believe that, people die. Well, I mean, the thing is, like, it's not hard to basically. I don't know. I don't know how you can believe. I'm not sure that he was a historical figure.
All righty. Well, I'm going to let Stuart answer you, and then I'm going to take the next gentleman after you.
Oh, okay. Out of the park.
This just seems like a very kind of more emotionally driven question because you're jumping all over the place. So are there emotional smoke screens here, or am I way off?
No,
You're referring to sexism and a lot of these other issues. So are there emotional smoke screens? I'm just wondering.
I don't know what that means, but the thing is, like, the Bible is full of shit, right? And
yeah.
The thing is, it's so stupid. Like, have you seen the Book of Mormon, the play by the South Park boys or whatever?
Yeah.
It's so easy to show that it's ridiculous,
Yeah.
And it's amazing. That's the point that I'm trying to make.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Good.
But
yeah.
I mean, I don't know. Like, how do all these men, these pastors, and all this shit, like, how do you justify the misogyny?
Okay, so I'm lost when you say that. I couldn't disagree more because actually, if you look into the history, Christianity did more for women and equal rights and gender rights than any other religion. So I don't know where exactly are you referring to 1 Timothy when it talks about women shouldn't speak in church? Is that what you're referring? Like, what are you referring to?
What I'm saying, what I said earlier was that I opened the book up at random and read some, and I can't
speak up a little bit.
Fortunately, I can't quote. I'm sorry, I don't remember like the.
But you can't come out here and start making claims that the Bible is sexist, and you don't even have one passage to go by.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it is. I mean, I wasn't hallucinating.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like.
Yeah, because there's female leaders in the church throughout the entire New Testament, right?
And they've only allowed females.
No, I have many friends who have their senior pastors are women.
I know, and that's only in
right?
very recent history, in the last 30 years or so, or I don't know, but you tell me. But it's very, very recent, right? But
okay. Yeah.
Yeah, this is the patriarchal.
So I'll keep going.
Culture.
Okay, we'll stay on the sexism topic then.
Yeah.
I still think there's a serious emotional smokescreen here, but maybe I'm wrong. But okay, sexism in general. Why in the world would women be the first ones to go to the empty tomb of the resurrected Christ? Why would the gospel writers put that in there? Because immediately that's elevating women to be the first ones to see a dead man who claimed to be God, risen from the dead. So their validation of that fact is higher than man's in every way. Is that sexist?
I don't believe that. I mean.
Okay, well, that's just what the scriptures say.
Yeah, but see, let's go back to that. The earlier gentleman.
So that's validating women. That's one.
The earlier gentleman was saying,
keep going.
There was that a disagreement over like which book you should trust. Should you trust the Quran or the Bible? Like, why on earth would you trust a book that's a collection of writings by dead men that have been dead for a long time? Many of the important books are left out of it. The Gnostic, do you know what the Gnostic Gospels
Absolutely,
are?
yeah.
Yeah, like, I mean, you don't even. And here's another point. The thing
Gospel
is that,
Thomas, et cetera,
aside from Christian mystics,
right,
in the Christian religion, this is how you oppress people: is you don't allow them to really be enlightened and really understand that. That, I guess that's the thing. Like, it's putting people's minds in a little box, that they can't escape out of or whatever.
Yeah.
And I mean, like, so why are they?
Okay, so we'll talk about freedom since you're going there. Okay, freedom. We've talked a lot in the last few days. A lot of students have brought up moral absolutes, right? I would say one of the only, if not the only, absolute today in our culture is freedom. Would you agree with me on that? So it was brought up negative and positive freedom.
Okay.
Both were brought up, right?
Okay.
So negative freedom is freedom against, positive freedom is freedom for. Okay. My argument from the Christian faith, why it makes the most sense of freedom and why it is the most freeing for both you and me in terms of our self-worth, our identity, but let's go with relationships, okay? We can go with the other two later. Relationally, why it is the most freeing is because it is a positive type of freedom, not the negative freedom, which says it validates you as an individual completely, says you have free will, and yet at the same time, when it comes to, say, marriage, you are supposed to sacrifice for your spouse in order to have a loving relationship. So you have that relationship right there, the marriage relationship. Now let's make this broader. Let's take it societal, culturally speaking. If you have a type of positive instead of a negative freedom, where you're negating freedom for a positive reason, you're going to make sacrifices for the poor. You're going to make sacrifices for your children. You're going to make sacrifices for your spouse, friendships. So in my mind, that's exactly what the Bible reinforces, a type of positive freedom, when negative freedom is deleterious to our culture, which is what you see in so much of our culture today.
I mean, you know, like...
So when you say this box, I'm just trying to get at, what are you talking about when you say box?
Oh, well, I mean, like, okay, I've read a lot of books in my life, and I believe to get at the truth, you better look at a lot of sources, right? That would be my argument. You need to look here, look there.
Bro.
Right, look everywhere, and then just think for yourself, right?
Yep.
Like what the truth is.
Yep.
It sounds like a gunshot. Anyway, what was I saying?
Okay, so let's just keep going with freedom then, okay? So, Barry Schwartz, someone brought up TED Talks yesterday, so I'll stay with TED Talks. Barry Schwartz talks about...
I remember that what I was working on. The thing is, like, it just makes me sad to see people, I mean, I'm glad that they're studying something and reading something, but they're always reading the same book, and they read it over and over and over again, but that's the only thing that they can read, right? And that's why I think it's used to control people, right?
Right.
You know, that seems pretty obvious to me, right? Like, you are restricted, really, from looking in other places.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. That's why I try and pull from as many external sources that I possibly can. I don't just look at the Bible. That would be a little narrow-minded. You're exactly correct.
Yeah.
So, but again, why I still want to get at, where is your kind of more anger coming from? Because you called yourself the Antichrist when you stepped up here. Then you talked about misogynism, sexism.
Yeah.
There's some
anger.
Is religion evil? Is that why you're doing this? Was Christ evil?
Not Christ. I told you I believe in his message.
Okay.
And there's, you know, that
I'm
Buddhist
just trying to
guy,
get,
well, that Buddhist guy, Thich Nhat Hanh, wrote a book called Living Buddha, Living Christ.
I love that book. Great
where
book.
He compares the two, you know, and that's good to make the point that, okay, this wasn't the only guy or whatever, but what I don't know. Oh, anger, right. Well, I mean, just that people are controlled in this way. It's horrible. And all the violence. You know, when I was reading about the, Bloody Mary in England, I don't know the whole story, but because of this fight over whether our religion's going to be Protestantism or Catholicism, how much blood is shed, right? So blood is shed all the time because of religion, right? Yeah. And, demonizing those brown people over there so we can, murder them, which we do by the hundreds daily,
true.
I guess. Not right.
I totally agree with you.
And how can how can a man go and be a mercenary for these corporations, murder people, and then I think all murder should be illegal. I think all murder is wrong. But how can he do that? I'm not done yet. How can he do that? Then come back and go to church on Sunday and
that's hypocrisy. Good. Yeah. Exactly right. Okay, so you brought up two right there. 2 in 1, in the sense of religion can be violent, and you also have the issue of hypocrisy, right? Okay, religious hypocrites I have to answer for as a pastor on a regular basis, right?
Yeah.
Jesus Christ was confronting religious hypocrisy throughout the entire New Testament, if you look at it, right? With the main group was the Pharisees, right? So, first of all, religious hypocrisy is completely wrong. And if you want a case study, look at the Pharisees, how they treat the poor, how they're into self-aggrandizement, and how they're all about praying in front of people so they can seem more self-righteous, right?
Right.
Okay.
And that's what our society is full of
so,
now.
we're taking that, so that's an example of hypocrisy.
And that's where I agree
and now
with
we'll
Jesus
apply it to religion, like you said.
Right.
And how is religion bad? How is it evil? Reinhold Niebuhr, are you
I
familiar?
know that name. He's
Okay.
a philosopher.
Yep, great cultural critic as well. He talked about how, he would totally agree with you, just like I would, religion can easily be used for prideful reasons.
Right.
And when it is, it destroys in every single way.
Right.
Because it just gives a person another reason to be more moral, more spiritual
Right.
than another
I'm more
human being.
human, more special than those people.
Exactly,
I can
and when
kill
you
them.
colonize that, whoa, watch out.
Right.
I want no part in that, right? That gets back to the dogma point that was made yesterday. So, okay, that's one. But then Niebuhr goes on to say, but hold on, wait a second. If you look at Jesus Christ and Christ's claims, you start to get an understanding of he calls you to give up yourself. And when religion is all about surrender and you're not living for yourself or trying to, quote unquote, figure yourself out, because we're all mixed in our feelings and our understandings of self, when we're fully self-transcended, that is when the claims of Jesus Christ and the Christian faith can do so much for society and has done so much.
Yeah, I mean, I agree that, like, yeah, like self humility. I agree with, you know, that's a good thing, and that's not something I disagree with. I'll just have one more point and then I'll sit down. But I don't really understand original sin, and see, that's another evil thing, because people.
No.
Because people, I mean, you tell them from the time they're born that they're a sinner, so they always have this. Alan Watts has this great talk where he talks about that guilt. Their sense of guilt is unnecessary. So that guilt destroys people, right? It makes them. It's just, it's not a good thing. So now, I don't use myself as an example because I'm not the nicest person necessarily, but I know people, and even like adult people who are angels, you know, so to speak, like they're real sweet, and you could never imagine them, you know, harming another person.
Yep.
And to call that, you know, thinking of a woman friend that I know, to call that person a sinner is wrong.
Yeah.
It's horrible.
Yep.
It's wrong.
So good. Sin's coming up a lot today. I want to talk about a biblical definition of sin, because sin has been given, gosh, it's been defined wrongly over the years in many ways, in my understanding.
Okay.
I believe sin, the reason why Jesus Christ calls us out for our sin and wants us to change, is because sin is ultimately against human flourishing. So in that sense, Sigmund Freud would agree with me. Nietzsche would agree with me. Sigmund Freud talked a ton about original sin and our dark side, correct?
Right. Civilization and its discontent.
Exactly. Thank you. And so, but he never really gave, he was a pretty depressed guy himself, was he not? Right? And so he never really gave the antidote to that problem. But he's one of my atheistic heroes in that sense, because he talks about this dark side of humanity. And how in the world do we get to a place of saying, okay, what can we do about this? So I brought up Nietzsche and Freud. I'll go now Kierkegaard, who said in order to get through this type of sin, you have to know yourself better. What are your tendencies? What are your motives? What drives you? And Kierkegaard went on to say, you get over sin, you know your true self in relationship to God. Again, self-transcendence, not living in the self.
Right.
So when we align ourselves to Christ, to God, that is when our character grows. That's when we can change.
Right.
I'll go back to my Alcoholics Anonymous friends that I've been doing a lot of work with lately.
Yeah.
When they start to surrender their own self-interests and make sacrifices, transcend the self, they see tremendous healing in their own mental health and relational health.
No, and I agree with that. I've been going to AA recently, and I so it's kind of you've seen the philosophy or whatever. I agree. The only
So I'm surprised then that you're so angry at
the only problem I
religion,
have with what you're saying is that Christ is not necessary for this, or God, which we don't know how to define. We don't know what we're talking about when we say God.
So you disagree with your AA buddies then? Because what are the fundamental tenets of AA?
I guess what you said. Those things that does help people with mental health issues and relationships, and I see you know the church helping people with that. It's just in my mind, you don't need the Bible, you don't need Christ. I don't understand this obsession with this one man, you know, who lived 2,000 years ago.
Sure, and it's getting back to your original question. What do we do with shame, guilt, and our dark side, our Freudian dark side? How do we get over that? How does humanity change? W.H. Auden was an atheist before he saw the world wars. And then all of a sudden, he became a Christian because he saw the dark side of humanity. He said, humanity is really sinful. Technology is not going to improve humanity. There needs to be a Christ figure to improve humanity. Again, it's above the human self. The self cannot balance in itself both meaning, purpose, good, evil. It's too small, right? It is entirely too small. So getting back to the shame and guilt, what is going to eradicate that shame and guilt? And Christ's claim is, it's like my New Age friend who just became a Christian. He said, my understanding was that I was God and that you were God. There was light in both of us. But nothing could ultimately take away my shame and guilt until I went to the cross of Christ. This guy's a brilliant businessman, and he said, as soon as I got in touch with the grace of God and the cross of Christ, that guilt and shame for all the wrong I had done was completely swept away.
How do you deal with anger? There's good anger. Good anger is defending and protecting someone or something you love. Good anger at times even goes so far as to destroy evil, to destroy what is threatening the one you love. But there's also wrong anger. Wrong anger is an overreaction to a person. It's also defending the wrong person or the wrong thing. Unfortunately, for most of us, wrong anger is expressed most frequently when we are defending ourselves, my pride, my reputation. I tend to want to protect my image so strongly that if you threaten my image, I will get angry with you and defend myself in an inappropriate way. So often when you and I get angry, we should ask, who or what am I defending? Anger is an emotional response. We all experience it. But there's a good anger and there's a bad anger. And one of the ways we can see whether it's a good anger or not is by asking ourselves, who or what am I defending when I get so angry? Anger can be good when it is directing your energy in the right direction. Jesus Christ walked into the temple courts and he overthrew the tables of the money changers. He was directing his anger against hypocritical religion and driving the money changers out of the temple courts. Jesus directed his anger against evil and wrongdoing. You and I can do the same, and that is a good expression of anger. But the real solution to wrong anger is often patience. Patience is the ability to suffer long. Patience is the ability to accept a person even when they're misbehaving. Patience is the ability to handle life even when life does not fall into place the way I want it to. It's amazing how angry I can get when people and circumstances do not go my way, the way I would like. Anger often is a result of me being addicted to comfort. When I'm addicted to comfort and I face discomfort, I get angry. At other times, anger is the result of unrealistic expectations. The challenge is, you and I live in a fallen, messed up world. Therefore, to grow in patience is crucial. Unrealistic expectations set us up for wrong anger. I love Romans chapter 12, verse 12, where the Apostle Paul writes, "Be joyful in hope, patient in affliction, faithful in prayer." Patience is the ability to love under pressure, the ability to love even when circumstances and people are going against you and against me. How does that happen? It happens when we learn to surrender to God, to surrender to Christ, and to say, your will be done, Lord, in this situation in my life. Your will. Which means even when the pressure's on, even when circumstances are not falling into place the way I would like them fall into place, I am going to continue to be steady and secure in God's love and to be patient with people, to be patient with life. That's hard for me, really hard. But as I learn to surrender to Christ and to live in the ocean of His love, He begins to change me from the inside out and give me patience. In order to grow in patience, it's also wise to learn to hate grumbling and complaining. You and I live in a culture that says, you deserve this, you deserve that. I deserve this, I deserve that. Really? You buy into that too much, and you will blow every relationship you have right out of the water. Because no human being on the face of the planet is going to meet and satisfy all of your expectations, all of what you think you deserve. No, the challenge is to understand that I live in a fallen world, that the God of the universe loves me, and that He will be with me through the difficult times when almost nothing falls into place the way I want it to fall into place. He is with me. And my contentment, my joy, my fulfillment does not come from getting what I want. It comes from receiving God's love and being rooted and grounded in that love which is unconditional and does not change. So when you feel like you're getting angry, do what I'm trying to learn to do. Hit the pause button. Ask yourself, what am I defending? What am I trying to destroy? What are my motives? Examine your motives. Examine your desires. Patience. Stop wanting and relying on the world to love me the way I need to be loved. Learn to rely on God for His love. Patience comes from falling more deeply in love with Jesus Christ. And that is tremendous power. That is really living a flourishing, good life. Patience is learning to walk with Christ, which is going to turn your irritable soul into a sanctuary of peace. And that is really joyful living. Have you ever put your faith in Christ? Have you ever responded to His love for you by asking Him for forgiveness genuinely, by trusting Him that He died on the cross for your sin, and then by trusting Him for eternal life in heaven? You can make that decision now. Simply, genuinely, ask Him for forgiveness for your wrongdoing. Trust in Him that He died on the cross for your sin, and open up your life to allow His Holy Spirit to grow patience within you so that you will be able to use anger in a healthy, wise way and steer away from destructive anger. God bless you as you make that most important decision to trust in Jesus Christ. I'm the pastor of Grace Community Church. We meet every Sunday morning at 9:30 at Grace Farms, located at 365 Luke's Wood Road in New Canaan, Connecticut. I'd love to personally invite you to join us this Sunday for our 9:30 service. Thanks for joining us for these few minutes. Have a great day.